and they're almost overwhelming themselves with information because there's two sides to it, right? There's not getting enough information, and then there's overwhelming yourself with information and paralyzing yourself from taking that first step. Yeah, if
That
you're in the
works.
front of people's mind when they think about buying or selling, or they have a friend that's buying or selling, and you have a good relationship with them, then that's the first name they think of, and they say, "Oh, I know somebody." Because time is so important when it comes to fixing and flipping. You really just have to be tight on your numbers.
We were in negotiations.
Investing in real estate, they're winning, they're making money. What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Real Estate Educators Podcast, where we provide the education you can build on. I am your host, Kevin Amolsch. We're having a blast doing this podcast. We're having so much fun helping real estate investors and real estate educators. If you're out there building a portfolio, fixing and flipping, or you're out there providing content to other real estate investors, this is the podcast for you. Super excited to have a guest you might recognize. She's been on the channel before several times, actually. Very good with all the designing, and that was a fun day. Her telling us about the different color choices to make in our fix and flips. But Maya Brown, you've been a loan officer here for a while now, and I know you came to Pine as a fix and flipper, and I think a lot of the listeners probably know who you are. But if you don't mind, first of all, welcome to the show. If you don't mind, tell us a little bit about yourself.
So it's crazy, Kevin, but I've actually been working for Pine almost 2 years now. So my anniversary will be May 15th, which is coming up. And my gosh, the time has flown. It's been crazy. And I came to Pine through a very unconventional way. I think they had shot out an email to a bunch of borrowers, and one of my friends got the email and was like, "Hey, this sounds like it'd be a good fit for you." And as you mentioned, I was kind of doing some fix and flipping. On the side, and I had my real estate license, so I was doing some just straight listings and working with some buyers, but doing some fix and flipping on the end, and it just sounded like it would be a good fit. But I got to be honest, when I went into the interview, I wasn't really like, I was just like, I'll just go in and see what it's all about, but I didn't really have any feelings one way or the other. So after meeting you guys and meeting all the ladies in the office, it was like, wow, this looks like something really fun and really special, and I wanted to be a part of it, and I'm glad that I am. A little bit of background just to refresh everyone. I am a Denver native, grew up, went to Pomona High School, went to college in North Carolina at the University of North Carolina, and moved back. My family's still in the Colorado area. So this is my home. This is my roots. I'm glad to be here and be a part of what we have going on at Pine.
Well, I am really excited to have you on. So I invited you on, Maya, because we just flew out to Minnesota, maybe is that about a month ago already? Gosh.
Yeah, I know. It's
We've
flying.
It's flying, right? Q1 is already done. But you and I and Coop, we flew out to Minnesota and we hosted the Minnesota Real Estate Investor Summit. And you, for the very first time, got up in front of the room and talked real estate. And you gave
Yeah.
an amazing presentation. And a lot of people didn't get a chance to hear that, right? A lot of our listeners did not get a chance to hear your story, your real estate journey. So I wanted to invite you on so we could just basically go through what you did in front of that room in Minnesota for everybody else. So thank you for agreeing to come on. Now, you had some pretty fun stories to share about your first couple of deals. So
I don't know. Fun is how I would describe. I mean, with a fix and flip, you go, I think you do the range of emotions, right? I mean, there's fear, there's fun, there's panic. I mean, there's so many different things that go in the journey, and then ultimately just getting to the end of it and going back through all of the steps and what you could have done differently, what you could have done better, the things that you're proud of, how you learned, what you learned. So I mean, I think it really takes you through the whole range of emotions, and it's exhausting, I mean, to be honest, but definitely very rewarding. So when you all asked me to speak, it was interesting because I thought, oh, I'll just get up and like talk a little bit. And then I remember Callie telling me it was going to be 70 minutes. And I was like, oh my gosh, I was like, 70 minutes, I've got to like really be organized about like what I'm talking about, and be able to keep the crowd engaged, and really ultimately what I wanted to do was just connect with some of the borrowers, not as a lender, but just kind of as a colleague and somebody that's, on this journey as well. And trying to change my life through real estate investment, because even though, we talk about paint color and fixing and flipping, ultimately we all want to make a little bit of money, to change our circumstances and change our lives, and and kind of fortify our future, so to speak.
So you shared the story about your very first deal and how you
Mhm.
freaking hit a home run. I mean, a lot of
Totally.
people would consider that a home run. And then
Yeah. No, totally.
you go into the next one with a little bit of swag, a little
A little bit
confidence.
too cocky. And you know what? At the time that I was flipping, like the market was hot. So, I mean, the last thing you were worried about was being able to sell your house. I mean, that wasn't even on the board. It was like any little piece of crap that you could throw out there was going to sell. It might not sell for the exact amount that you wanted to, but you didn't have to worry about sitting on the market for days and days and days. And with my first flip, we did a great job. We were in the Swansea neighborhood of Denver, Colorado, and 3 bedroom, 2 bathroom, corner lot, great yard, 2 car garage. I mean, really just check the boxes of what people were looking for. And the price point that we were at was also really rare to find at that time because the prices were just going off the charts. And we were kind of right around that $500,000 mark, which for a house of that size was really hard to find. So, everything went really well. Had a couple of hiccups with the furnace and somebody spray painted the garage, with some graffiti. A couple of little hiccups like that we had to fix, but ultimately, we got it done really quick. We were in and out. We sold for over list price, and we were only on the market for like 3 or 4 days. And went under contract, we were out of it, in gosh, maybe I think it was 3 months total on the fix and the sell. So I mean, yeah, absolutely a home run, and felt super confident going into that second one. And it was hard to relive that, Kevin. Like going back through the numbers and really being honest with myself, because to be honest, I think I had like kind of morphed the numbers a little bit in my head of maybe I didn't lose that much. But when I went back through it, like honestly, I had lost a lot more than what I thought. So yeah, it was tough.
I don't think I've shared this with you, but my first house was in Swansea. I
Mm.
lived in it. So that's when I was 21. I bought that one. My garage also got tagged by the neighbors. So we share that.
We do. It was tagged real good too. I mean, we had to paint they did all sides, front, back.
Yeah, that's so
It
funny.
was
It's
great. Good stuff.
probably the same group, huh? Okay, so how much did you make on that first one?
So on the first one, we made about $63,000.
Yeah, that's
So,
great.
yeah, I mean, for 4 months, at the time, that was more than we had expected. I think we had budgeted to make like 50 or something like that in our crap numbers that we ran, that we had no idea what we were doing. But ultimately, the reason we were able to do so well is just because of the short turnaround time. And that's what, I've learned a lot at Pine about, getting in, getting out, not getting bogged down in the details too much. And I did all of those things on the second one because I was in the perfect neighborhood. I mean, we had got a little Victorian home in Baker, um, and it was cute and uh, just couldn't have been a better location. We got a great price on it. At the time, there was a guy that was unloading his entire portfolio, and he had about 20 properties. So this one was still had some tenants in it, and it was kind of wild. The house was pretty trashed, and he ultimately just ended up taking our offer, which wasn't very good. But I think he just really wanted to get rid of this one. Took our offer, and everything was great up until then, and I swear it was downhill from there. Like every time we turned around, there was a problem, and each of those problems cost, thousands of dollars. And, before we knew it, we were just really in over our heads. And one of the stories I told was, uh, we were in over our heads, and then we peek our head up into the attic and decide to finish out the entire attic, which was possibly the worst decision that we ever made because not only did it extend the project from a time standpoint, but also from a money standpoint. And the interest rates changed, that summer as we were finishing up. And if we just sold it as a 2-1 without the attic, the interest rates would have still been right around 2%, 2-3%. And then by the time we were finished, they were right around 5-6, which was a huge difference.
So what you're describing is interest rate risk.
Yeah.
And so the shorter amount of time you're in a deal, the less exposure you have to that risk. So you said get in, get out. That would have helped you tremendously here. Now, my question is, had deal number two been deal number one, would that have changed anything for you? Would you still
Oh,
be
you mean
doing, because I know you're doing,
would I have gone into the second deal?
yeah, exactly.
Probably not, because the money that we made off of deal one actually allowed us to do deal number two. So had I lost money on the first deal, I wouldn't have even had the cash to, continue to fix and flip. And I would have definitely not been able to convince my husband to do it again if I would have like lost, as big as I did on the second one. But one thing I did do after we lost on the second one was we jumped right into the third one. I didn't want to feel like I had the arrogance that every single deal I do is going to be a winner. Some of them are going to be, boogers. And so I jumped right into a third one and made about $8,000 on that third one. But it still felt like something. It wasn't zero. And by the end of that, then I kind of decided to just take a break on it. And I would say about 2, 3 months after that was when I joined Pine. So I had
And
just been coming
now,
out of that third one.
now you're doing another one. So the
Yeah,
way it went for you was actually quite perfect, because had you done two instead of one, your second deal instead of your first, you might not still be in the business. We might
that's a
not
good
know
point.
each other, right?
Yeah,
And so you hit a home run, which I typically don't like to see because it does create some arrogance.
absolutely.
But it enabled you, the way you're describing it, to get into deal number two, and then that pushed you into another deal. So now you have three under your belt. Now it's going to be a fourth. I think it's a pretty good start to a career, if I'm going to be
Yeah.
quite honest with you. And now you have some support with Pine. Let's
Oh
start
yeah,
that.
I think in the first couple of months that I worked at Pine, just talking to Justin Cooper, Scott Kraft, Andrew Howie, some of the other loan officers, yourself, reading your book, going through some of those things and just kind of realizing like, wow, this knowledge was right in my backyard. I mean, Pine is really close to my house. I mean, all this knowledge, all this content, I don't know why I didn't seek it out. But I didn't, and so and I would look at this first, year and 10 months of working at Pine and seeing how successful some of our borrowers are and how they're running their numbers, how they're choosing their homes. I feel a lot more confident going into this one, but there's some fear there too. And that's definitely going to be my next article that I write for the website, is just kind of the fear that's attached to, just putting yourself out there and how difficult that can be, but how important it is as well to grow.
So, oh, that's great. So, is the article going to try to help us or help the reader understand how to get past that fear? Is that the
Yeah, I
goal of
mean, I
the?
think how to not let it hold you back from
Okay.
going after, what getting started, going back to the Minnesota Investor Summit and the Colorado Investor Summit. You meet so many times people that are just won't take that dip into the pool, take that first step into the pool. And they're almost overwhelming themselves with information, because there's two sides to it, right? There's not getting enough information, and then there's overwhelming yourself with information and paralyzing yourself from taking that first step. So my hope in this particular article will be that you don't let fear hold you back from chasing your dreams.
So, how do we do that?
Action, right? I mean, facing your fears head on and taking those small steps. And if it starts with just, looking at homes, and then, I'm looking at homes, I'm seeing one that I kind of like, then I'm maybe putting in an offer. We talked in our mastermind about putting, multiple offers in instead of just, putting one offer. And then, just taking those small steps. And every time you take one of those small steps and you feel that sense of victory, the fear, the fear goes away. It dissipates just a little bit every time. But you got to take those small steps.
But it's still there, right? You just said
Oh,
that you
I'm
still
terrified.
have,
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm
So tell us
terrified.
about
I'm
this
under
new deal.
contract. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm under
tell us about it.
contract right now with a property, and some issues are popping up, right off the bat. You and I have talked a little bit about it. There's a homeless issue there, and some transients that have kind of been in and out of the house. And I'm kind of faced with the difficulty of, figuring out how to get them out of the house, and how to deal with the mess that they've left behind. So already, some issues that are coming up, but that's how you get a cheap house, though. Something's going to be wrong with it.
Right.
And unfortunately, at this part of my journey, I'm just not ready to start doing the higher end projects right now. But that's where I kind of hope to be eventually, is, not in the weeds with some of these projects that have hoarders and mice and, damage to them. Hopefully, as I get better, I can buy homes that are more in the $500,000-$600,000 range that maybe don't have as many issues. and flipping those. So that's where I'd like to ultimately be. But right now, this is where I'm at, and it's just a matter of getting through it step by step.
It's a perfect place for you to be.
Yeah.
So help our listener. How'd you find this one that you're working on now? Walk us through the numbers. Maybe walk
Yeah.
us
So
through
I
the
would
fear that you
say,
have.
just kind of networking because I teach Caribbean dance. And as a real estate agent, I've actually had several deals, just buyers and sellers come through my dance class. We finish the class and I just kind of throw out there, hey, by the way, I'm a real estate agent. I'm also a real estate investor. If, you guys are have a grandparent or a friend or a neighbor that's looking to sell, I'm always just kind of throwing out those tidbits to my network. And ultimately that ended up paying off because this is a relative of somebody that attends my dance class that found themselves in a tough situation with this home, needed to get out of it really quickly. And I guess I'm here to the rescue, to get them out of a bad situation and also help taking that other step back in the pool for me because I've been kind of sitting around with cold feet as well since my, last flip as well. So, we both get to benefit from that situation. And I ended up I'm under contract on the home for 210,000, which for a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom house in the Denver metro area is great. It looks like Scott Kraft ran some numbers for me and the ARV is going to be around 450. I have my scope of work right at about the magic number, Kevin, $100,000. All of my
That's
scope
so
of works
funny.
are $100,000, whether could be 20,000, but I say 100,000 now, especially with everything that I've been through. So I do think I've inflated my scope a little bit, but that's okay. Maybe if I didn't budget anything for like landscaping and some things like that. So maybe if the numbers do come in a little bit lower and I was ultra conservative, I can do some things like that with the residual funds. I ran my numbers for a list price of 400 and it still shows me, getting a profit of about 42,000 at that number. And if it goes for the 450 that Scott is thinking, then I'm, a little bit closer to 90, which is obviously a lot better. So
Yeah, you might be higher on your ARV and lower on your budget. So you're running it
yeah, very
ultra conservative.
conservative.
I do these interviews and I talk to investors all the time, as you do. People say they're conservative all the time. Like, oh, I'm so conservative with this or this.
Really?
Like, oh, you don't hear that? Oh, this is conservative
Yeah.
value, they tell me. Okay, all right.
Yeah, but
But yours really is.
I really am trying to be that way because, honestly, um, I am still afraid. And that's why I want to write that article is because like I'm not letting my fear like stop me from doing what I want to do. But I am afraid, I mean, anytime that you are, gambling with the family funds a little bit, and
Mhm.
trying to make something happen and there's a risk involved. And I'm older, I'm in my late 40s. I've got kids that are heading off to college pretty soon. So, some might say that I'm not in a great situation to be taking risks, but you can also say that I'm in a perfect position to take those risks. So
Yeah, I would lean in towards that because you have the backing, you have the people around you, you have a great deal.
yeah.
I think this is fantastic. And you know what I'm just thinking as I'm hearing you talk about how you found it?
Hmm.
That's how Howie found his too, just by talking to people.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah, if
that
you're in the
works.
front of people's mind when they think about buying or selling, or they have a friend that's buying or selling, and you have a good relationship with them, then that's the first name they think of, and they say, "Oh, I know somebody.
Yeah.
I know somebody that can get you out of this house really quickly." And it's taken a while because I haven't had a deal, land in my lap like this in a while, but still it's good. I have a lot, like I said, I have a lot of clients that have come this way, and so it's just a matter of just mentioning to people, hey, by the way, this is what I do. If you ever hear of anything, give me a shout.
This episode is brought to you by Pine Financial Group. Pine Financial is a private lender specializing in short-term rehab lending to real estate investors. Got a property that needs some love? We can help. We are able to offer funding solutions because we raise private money from individual investors. With more than 15 years of experience, Pine offers passive investors an alternative that provides stability, consistency, and security to your portfolio. If you like real estate but want to avoid the ups and downs and effort, a Pine mortgage fund could be a perfect fit for you. Accredited investors will experience an 8% preferred return and profit sharing. Diversify your portfolio out of Wall Street and into Main Street with a Pine Financial Group mortgage fund. Get more information at pinefinancialgroup.com. That's pinefinancialgroup.com. We talk in the office a lot, Maya, about velocity, speed of cash, speed of capital.
Mhm.
And you had made a comment in front of the room in Minnesota about you could have exited that second deal quite early in the process. And you chose to chase the dollars and the profit instead of focusing on the velocity. Talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah, hindsight's always 2020, but there was a point with that house, like I mentioned, it was in a great location and there were a lot of active investors at the time. What was scaring people away from that house were the renters. There were like probably 7, 8 people living in that house. It was just the yard was trashed. I mean, it just looked like a really scary project. But, we got in there, we cleaned it out. We actually replaced the furnace, the water heater. Um, Gutted it, did all the demolition of the kitchen and the bathrooms, and it was really just kind of a clean slate for somebody to come in and just finish it up. And we would have made money had we sold it right then. There's no doubt because at the price that we got it, I think we probably could have made about $40,000-$50,000 had we sold it right then as is just to another investor. But we had the vision, man. We had the vision of what the house was going to look like at the end and all of the ideas. And, we definitely were a little bit too emotionally attached to the project, I think. But with this one, I definitely have that in mind that
Yeah.
once I get the house cleaned out and I find out exactly what's wrong with it and where we're at, I got such a great deal on the purchase price that I do feel like I want to maybe I will sell it to an investor at that point or a wholesaler. And maybe I will see it through if it looks good. So I've got both options ahead of me and I'm not going to fall in love with this project. I don't think I can. Like this is not the beautiful yellow Baker home, I don't if it, I don't think it's going to be very easy to fall in love with this house. But I do think it could be a great starter family home for somebody, and that excites me as well. Just make it a great home for a new family to move in and start their life with. There's some reward to that as well.
You love the transformation.
I do. I
Okay,
do.
so you're hyper focused on that. I could hear it when I'm
Yeah.
talking to you. So it's like
Yeah.
watching the TV shows, right? The reason
Yeah.
why
Why
those
would I
TV
do it?
shows are
If that,
great.
yeah, if that element were not there, I don't know that it would interest me as much. I mean, because I'm not, of course I want to make money. Of course I want to make money, but you hit the nail on the head. I am absolutely about the transformation and I'm a very visual person and I'm an emotional person, not afraid to admit. So I do like that part of it, seeing it through to the end and closing the book on, just reading all the chapters. And to me, selling it after you've gutted it is like reading the first 2 chapters and never finishing the book.
Yeah, I can see
And
that.
and that's hard to do for me.
That is, I mean, I can imagine that's pretty tough. For the listener, I mean, we have to separate the emotion if we're going to treat this as a business. If you don't treat it as a business, you're going to end up losing money. Let's be
Yeah.
quite candid here. So what kind of advice can you give us on how to remove that emotion based on what you learned on that deal number 2 to make the right business decision?
Yeah. And I think because time is so important when it comes to fixing and flipping, you really just have to be tight on your numbers. Of course, I want to see this to the end, but what is 4 more months going to cost me? You really do have to weigh those pros and cons. And like I said, if the market wouldn't, if the interest rates wouldn't have changed, I have every confidence that I would have made a ton of money on the second flip. So it's not necessarily that I made the wrong decision. It's just that it's just how it happened. And I can't control that. But the shorter the time period, the more control you have, I think. So I can't tell you that I'm not going to go into this flip with zero emotion or but I feel like I'm definitely more business minded this time around and more numbers minded because I really feel like I cannot take a loss on this one. So the easiest way that I can get out, I will do that. But we'll see. We'll just see. There's a lot of junk in this house, Kevin. and I have no idea what's going on. And that's one of the other reasons my scope of work is so conservative and high, because I actually don't know what's wrong with the house. I mean, once all the crap gets out of there, who knows what surprises will be waiting for me,
Gosh.
or or not, right?
Yeah,
Or
the
not.
surprise could be it doesn't need very much work, right? That could be the
Yeah,
surprise.
yeah.
I'm excited to see it.
Let's hope for that one.
Yeah, so it's a very difficult balance, the business and emotion, especially in real estate, because you're right that you could touch it, you could see it. It's not like, I don't know, it's not like a
Yeah,
normal commodity, right? It's something that people call their home. So I could see that emotion. Um, just encourage the listener to not fall into that. I mean, this is
yeah.
you're in this to make money. It's a business. So if there's a way to balance that, great. Otherwise,
So
business
so I'm going to
first.
ask you a question. You're telling me that you have zero, like you've never gone into a fix and flip just
Yeah,
wanting it to see it look pretty.
I could tell you that I've had emotion involved in deals in the past, which is why I've learned this lesson the hard way and why I'm
Mm,
so firm about it. The emotion wasn't the way the house looks though. So I could
yeah,
see why you or anybody else would feel that way, especially watching those shows because it's just so fun to see the transformation, right?
yeah,
I don't have that emotion. Now my emotion is, well, I gotta reach a goal of so many transactions this year, and so I'm emotional to that goal, or I have to I don't I got to get a deal because I'm bored. I don't have anything going on. I don't have any deals in the pipeline or something. So I have some emotion around that. I
hmm,
don't know if that makes sense. It's very different.
yeah.
It's a different, but it's still the emotion will still create poor decision making.
Gotcha. Trying to get to a number and maybe pushing a deal that wasn't a good deal just because you're
Exactly.
trying to hit that goal.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, that makes sense as well.
And we see it all the time with our clients. They're chasing earnest money, right? They have
Yeah,
their earnest money at risk because they made a mistake with their contract, let's say, or they're going to a wholesale transaction where they have non-refundable earnest. And then they realize later it's a marginal deal. And it's like, oh, we probably won't lose money. Maybe it's kind of break even, but I'll save my earnest money. And then they start chasing that earnest money. That's
yeah.
emotional also, right?
It
So
is. It
it's
is.
not
And that earnest money is a couple $1,000s that's
right.
hard to lose, but in the long run, it could be tens of thousands of dollars that you end up
Exactly.
losing.
Yeah, because you
Um,
feel defeated, right? If you lose your earnest money, you feel like someone beat you up.
there's no doubt about that. I can't, I have not had it happen to me, but I have definitely seen it. And I've been close and been just like, gosh, if I lose this earnest money, I'm really just starting off on the wrong foot. Just seems like you're kind of snake bitten at that point, but
Yeah,
you're
yeah,
right.
yeah.
No, no doubt. But yeah, I'm looking forward to kind of documenting this fix and flip for our web content and for our YouTube page. And I'm going to be very candid with all the details and everything that's going on. So I hope that people that are listening to the podcast, people that are following us on YouTube and through our social media will kind of follow my journey with my fourth fix and flip, and this time armed with a lot more knowledge and support. And I'm excited to really share the journey with everyone.
I do want to wrap up here because we wanted to keep this one a little shorter, but I have a few more questions for you if you have
Sure.
a time.
Yeah, I do.
Give me two things you learned from deal number two. That one seems like that's the one that you learned the most from. So that's why I'm like keying in on that one. So
Yeah,
give me two lessons you learned.
first off, don't overflip. Don't overflip, and be conscious of your time. I can't I would be like spending 3 days picking out bathroom tile. I mean, the amount of time that was wasted was just monumental because I was so confident that things were going to go well and that every detail mattered. And it just didn't. So I would say those two things, just really being conscious about your time, and not over flipping. Those are the two biggies. I mean, had I grasped onto those two things, I would have done so much better. I really would have.
Describe for me over flipping.
Like I said, picking out, what would the gold faucet really have mattered? Would the floral wallpaper that I picked out for the powder room, would that have really mattered? Would oh my gosh, I'm embarrassed to even say this. Would the gold grout with the golden flecks in the grout for the backsplash in the kitchen, did that matter? No, it did not matter. None of those things mattered. And I just thought it was so great. I really got in the weeds with picking out materials and wanting to make it perfect. And And I don't see myself making that mistake again. Because I didn't on the first or the third. It was just this particular house. You know, Baker, it's kind of this like artsy neighborhood that has a lot of like eclectic finishes, and a lot of the homes that I was seeing that were selling for top dollar, they had a lot of these little just details that made the home special. So I kind of got in the weeds with wanting to make our house, special. And it's funny, there was a little bit of history behind this house. Nathaniel Rateliff and the Night Sweats, it's a band. I knew nothing about them going into it, but apparently the drummer of the band used to live in this house, and they used to have concerts in the backyard. So as I'm holding open houses, people are coming to the house, and they used to go to these concerts, and all these fans are like pilgrimaging, to the house. I'm like, you want to buy it? You want to buy it? And nobody, I actually even wrote a letter. I sent an Instagram message to the band members to see if they wanted to buy it back. And that didn't work out either.
That's awesome.
So I really got
Did
in
they
the weeds
respond
with
to you?
that.
Did you get any
No,
response at all?
they never responded.
Oh, man.
But I had so many fans. I probably had 20, 30 fans coming to each open house that I had. So, I mean, knowing that, and that the house had a history, I thought, like, gosh, if I just really make this special, somebody's going to have it. I remember even saying those exact words. Somebody's going to walk in this house and they're going to have it. And, yeah, somebody had to have it, but it was for a lot less than
Exactly.
it was for a lot less than I was hoping.
We had a client out in Minnesota. This was years back, probably more than 7. And he would overflip everything. But he did pretty well because the market was strong and he was just getting great deals on the purchases. But I'm not kidding you, Mike. He would put in like basketball courts in the basement. It's like, that is really cool. And I was like, I gotta go see these houses. But no one's buying it for a basketball court. No one's going to buy that for the basketball court, right? And it costs a fortune to put that in. So very interesting. He ended up not lasting in the business. So that what you're saying is relevant.
And I guarantee you, he was about the transformation.
100%.
And so even though I love the transformation, that's a part of myself I have to reel in a little bit. And I think that there's a happy place where I'm still enjoying the flip, but just being conscious about my numbers and that outweighing the transformation. So I think I learned my lesson that way. No more golden grout. I'm just going to stick with the regular stuff and see how we go. And this will be a good house for me too, because it's definitely going to be a starter home. So moderate finishes, there's not going to be anything fancy with this one, just something really clean and safe, a place where, somebody can start their family and buy their first home.
And it's going to be beautiful.
Yeah, I think so too.
I'm sure of it. Right before we wrap up, I'm curious, when you did your first presentation, you were obviously a great speaker. You've been in front of the camera, like a big chunk of your life with the sports broadcasting stuff. But you never done it like an education. I'm trying to teach you something that I know. So tell me your experience with that. How did you feel? Like, what did you get out of it?
I think I built it up a lot in my mind. Like, I was definitely really nervous, like going into it, not the speaking part. I think most people who speak, they're nervous about the speaking part. I wasn't nervous about that part. I just wanted to make sure that what I was delivering and what I was giving to the attendees was valuable to them, and that they could relate to it and relate to me. So I think once I felt that people were listening and they were engaged and that they were interested in what I had to say, that it got just easier as it was going on. But it was definitely, I still am relatively new to all of this.
Yeah.
So, the insecurity of like, I hope that I can show them something or teach them something. I wanted people to get something out of it. When with sports broadcasting, it's like, I'm so overconfident and I'm so prepared that there's nothing that can be thrown at me that I can't handle. So, I mean, in that sense, it's being prepared is the key to public speaking. If you're prepared, then you can pull it off. But if you're not prepared and you waited till the last minute, then that's when it starts getting a little bit rough. But that was my biggest fear going into it. But once I got rolling, it was pretty easy, just to kind of talk about myself, maybe if my next topic is something a little bit more complicated, that's not just me talking about me and what I did, we'll revisit this conversation and maybe that'll be a little bit more difficult. But it was nice to rip the Band-Aid off and just kind of, in this new career that's kind of reinventing myself as well, to kind of get out there and share my story.
Well, I don't know how many deals you've been a part of on the financing side, but it's got to be,
Oh,
gosh, it's got to be getting
over, probably about over 60 now.
okay. I thought it might
Yeah.
even be a tad higher than that. So, but it's a lot. So you've seen a lot of transactions. You've
Yeah.
talked to a lot of investors that are that have both struggled and have had a lot of success. So
Hmm.
I know you're newer, and I get that, but I don't know if you give yourself enough credit. You sort of know what you're doing a little bit.
No, no, no. I know what not to do. That's for sure. You know, I may be
Starts
still
there.
figuring out the right thing to do, but I think I definitely know what not to do.
All right, I'm gonna go through my notes. You're a fan of the show, so I just read whatever I wrote down, what I've learned or my takeaways from our conversation, and I just want you to let me know if I missed anything or how you thought the notes are, and then I want you to give a final piece of advice to someone who's listening, maybe a newer investor that was in your position, or is in the position you were in, um, and then contact information. So
Okay.
I put my very first note here was don't get cocky. So stay humble. And I think I think that came up in my notes because you were talking about your very first deal and how you made over 60 grand with your partner. And then you got, a little arrogant maybe, and you just you went for it. And then I actually created a problem for you on the next one because you could have got out at a 40 or $50,000 profit. And
Yep.
instead you stayed in and you got hurt. So get in, get out. We talked a lot about the velocity. If you're in and out quickly, you limit your market and interest rate risks.
Hmm.
Seek out content, something that you didn't do at the beginning. You just went for it. I think you were watching
Yeah.
A&E and then you're like, this is anyone could do this. And you just went
Yeah.
for it.
Anyone can do this.
Yeah, you weren't
Yeah.
really trying to learn. And then you also said, but don't get overwhelmed. Don't overwhelm yourself with content. So there's a balance here. Go get educated, but don't get so educated that you never do anything. You
Yeah.
really do have to take action. And that's what you said next. And that's how you overcome fear. And it's not just taking action, guys. She said the very small steps. So just looking at houses, you can go to a house and just know I'm not going to make an offer on it. So there's no risk, right? But
Yeah.
just go look at it. That little step will start building the confidence and get you over the fear. Finding deals, a great way to do it is networking. Be sure you tell everybody what you do, what you're looking for. And if you do that enough, deals will start to come in. Um, Numbers first. Be very tight on your numbers. I know it's an emotional game. This is an emotional business. Let's try to balance this though. We have numbers, our business decisions, and you have emotional decisions. Maybe the decision is somewhere in between, but don't make emotional decisions because that's how you get hurt. Um, and then the last two pieces of advice you gave us was don't overflip, and we went into a little bit of detail about that. It's like
Yep.
basically over developing or over improving, spending money that you're not going to get back out. Every dollar that goes in should produce, I don't know what a formula is for you, but $2 or $3 back to you. So if you're
Back
putting
in.
money in, it needs to be a higher amount you're getting back. Otherwise, that improvement doesn't make sense. And then finally, be cautious of your time. You spent a great deal of time picking out tiles, making sure everything was perfect. You had no regard for your time, and you learned that
No,
important
I
lessons.
thought I thought no matter what I do, there's no way. How many times did we say to each other, there's no way we lose money on this?
Yeah, I can't imagine. And you
No,
guys are
that
still
was
friends
good. You
today,
did
and you guys
good.
are.
You were really listening to me, Kevin.
Of course I was. And the listener doesn't know, but this partner of yours is a close friend, and you guys are still doing deals together. Is she in this one too?
She's not in on this one, but I'll be doing this one on my own for the first time. So, and really just because she's a teacher, she's got three young children. She just kind of didn't want to get into this one, but I think we'll definitely be back together doing some deals. It's nice to when you're doing a flip, you want to talk about the flip. You want
Yeah,
somebody who's just as invested in it as you. So having a partner is great.
it's fun.
Yeah, having a partner is great.
All right, any final words of wisdom?
Yeah, just take that step and keep following us here, get that education and maybe you can send me a message and tell me what's going on with your flip or what I can do to help to get you to take that step into your first flip. We love talking to borrowers, we love talking to investors, and whether you work with us or not, yeah, we just like talking fix and flips. So you can reach me. My email address is maya@pinefinancialgroup.com. That's MAYA at pinefinancialgroup.com. And our phone number is 303-835-4445. I always laugh about Howie when I'm saying the phone number.
Yeah, if you guys haven't checked out that blooper reel from our last YouTube, he just kept forgetting the phone number, and he did. Yeah, he just, I guess there's no other way to say it. He forgot the phone number. Pretty funny. And so be sure to check out the newsletter, because your article will be in the is it not April? It'll probably be the May.
Yeah, I have an article about the Minnesota Investor Summit. If you haven't had a chance to check that out, that was in the newsletter last month.
Yep.
And then I'll be working on another article for the newsletter, just talking about, overcoming your fear when it comes to fix and flip, and just taking that step and embracing the risk.
Well, I can't wait to read it. So thank you so much for your time. I know you had a little emergency with your daughter today. I had to go pick her up from school. I hope everything is okay. You went home, you still jumped on and hung out with me, so I really appreciate it. For the listener, you have lots of different options in podcasts, and you chose to listen to the Real Estate Educators podcast, and we are so appreciative of you. If you got value out of this, as I did, I know you did, because Maya is amazing, please 5-star review and share this with a friend, and I hope you make this day a great one. Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed this episode as much as I did. If you did, please be sure to follow and leave us a review. Oh yeah, and tell a friend.